Hey there, Heather, ho there, it's Jeff Cutter Diamond. Welcome you to the playoffs version of Stone Cold Hockey 81-82 season, in which we will be playing for keeps, if you will. We got the division semifinals on the top four teams in the North Division: Minnesota, Winnipeg, Chicago, and Toronto. Of course, in real life, Toronto sucks so terribly. Edmonton, LA, Vancouver, Calgary. Shockingly, those two matchups were the same. In the Adams division, Montreal versus Quebec, just like real times, in Boston, Buffalo, just like real life. And then the Patrick division, Islanders played. We faced the Flyers, while the Rangers played Washington. Yeah, Islanders Flyers 2 years ago was Stanley Cup Finals, and now we're playing each other. Rangers Washington. Pittsburgh, I know, was in the tournament. I don't think Washington was. Yeah, Washington wasn't. Pittsburgh was. And all that. So we take a look at the summary, and Minnesota with 97 points, Winnipeg at 80 and stayed at 500. Chicago 2 games below 500. Toronto 6 games below 500, but they made it. It's because St. Louis and Detroit just sucked. Of course, Detroit was part of the dead things era. And the Smythe, Edmonton, Vancouver, Calgary above 500. LA with only 72 points. They actually did better in the simulation than they did in real life. They only trail Edmonton by 31 points. And the Adams, Montreal 106, Boston 97, Buffalo 89, Quebec was below 500, but Hartford sucked. And then the Patrick, we put 117 points tops in the NHL, 94 by the Rangers, 82 by Washington, Philly nipping Pittsburgh at the line by 2 wins. Wayne Gretzky was the goal scoring leader with 76, Mike Bossy 68, Blaine Stoughton 65, with 50 goal seasons by Rick Middleton, Brian Trottier, our own, Dennis Baruch, Barry Pedersen, Larry McDonald, our own John Tonelli, Dale Hawerchuk, and Mark Messier. So 11 50 goal scorers. Mike Gardner almost got to 50 goals. He got to 48. Marcel Dion, Morris Lukowicz, Peter McNabb, Bobby Smith, Brian Prop, Rick Five, Elsie Court, Steve Bozak, Neil Broden, Hito Cesarelli, Jorgen Pedersen, Peter Stastny, Dave Taylor, John Anderson, Danny Savard, Clark Gillies, Mike Rogers, 40 goal scorers. Michel Goulet almost made it 30, 40 goal scorers. I feel so bad for Real Cluche. He was hot, 20 goals in 20 games, and yet he's not up there. Points wise, Gretzky with 181. He had more than 200 points in real life, but 181 in the simulation. Mike Bossy second with 133. Pretty good, huh? Danny Savard bought Smith with 120. John Tonelli took fifth by an inch over Stastny and Maruk. Good for us. Brian Trottier took eighth with 117. Clark Gillies got 29th in points. Goaltending, Billy Smith, the second best goals against behind Danny Heron. Fear third. And Rolly Mulinson fourth. So yeah, we had a good goaltending system. Our our team and all that, we had a 9 game winning streak from December 17th to January 4th. So, the fun end of December, and then a few games in the new year before losing to Philly. And then we had a 13 game winning streak from February 13th all the way to March 6th. So we almost did it in one calendar month. So yeah, in real life, we were 54, 16, and 10. In simulation, we almost did it perfectly, 53, 16, and 11. So we almost tied it perfectly. We had one fewer win and one more tie. So we lost by a point. Billy Smith, 32, 7, and 6. Mulinson, 21, 9, and 5. Both of us with 3 shutouts. Bossy, 133 points. Tonelli, 119. And Trottier, 117 for points. Clark Gillies, 87. Kind of embarrassing. He wanted to get to 100 points. A lot of people averaging like 30 points. Goals, Mike Bossy was 68. Trottier with 55. Tonelli with 51. Bossy had more goals than, well, if he scored all goals, he would be fourth behind Tonelli, Tarachi, and Gillies if you take away his assists on the team. But that's just on the team. Highlights wise, got all this going on. Biggest wins and worst defeats and all that. So 115 hat tricks, lots of 4 goal games. The highest scoring game was Philly versus Pittsburgh when Philly was down 5-1 and then scored 5 goals, which kind of did help Philly win a playoff spot instead of Pittsburgh. And then they beat St. Louis 9-5 after St. Louis was up 3-0. So Philly did their job. And number 3, Colorado Edmonton, when Colorado actually was down 5-4, but won for 4 goals in the third period on home ice and finally won a game. St. Louis Islanders, when we were up 5-2 and we choked, Sutter turned Mel Clausen. I don't think I did that game. No, I don't think I did that one because I didn't remark to Clausen. Detroit beat Boston 7-6. It was a 13-goal fest on February 20th, Detroit winning. So anyway, we go to the playoffs. 16 teams. So we will be, of course, simulating every series except for ours. We'll play the 5 games out. So by points, we were number 1, Montreal, then Edmonton, then Minnesota. But I don't think it really matters. If it was 1 versus 16, we'd be facing Philadelphia anyhow. Montreal would be playing LA. Edmonton would play Toronto. Wow. Minnesota, Quebec. Boston, Chicago. That would be the original system. Rangers, Winnipeg, Vancouver, Washington, Buffalo, Calgary. That's if we went to the 1/16 system. But we don't. The previous season we would. Minnesota Toronto game 1 saw Minnesota won at home 3-2 as both the Pride of Waterloo beat Bunny LaRock. Toronto goes by Durlico and Martin. Minnesota goes by Carlson, Christoph, and Cicerelli. Jack Carlson. Winnipeg Chicago game 1. Winnipeg wins 6-4. Zoltar beat Bannerman. Chicago goes by Doug Wilson, Ruskowski, Secord, and Marsh. Winnipeg goes by McLean, Babbage, Lukowitz, DuPont, Paul McLean, and Lukowitz. Or DuPont. Edmonton, LA. Game 1 goes to Edmonton 5-4. Ron Lowe with the win over Lassard. LA goes by Taylor, Simmer, Fox, and then Taylor again. Edmonton goes by Gretzky, Lowe, Lumley, and Glenn Anderson. Vancouver, Calgary, and Vancouver wins 6-3 as King Richard beat Reagan. Calgary goes by Chouinard, Bridgman, and Houston. Vancouver goes by Fraser, Gradine, Tiger, Lupul, Gary Lupul, that is, Gradine, and Bodrev. Wow. Montreal, Quebec, and Quebec goes into Montreal, wins 9-2 as John Garrett picked up for the stretch right by the Nordiques, beats Montreal's Richard Sevigny. Big win, 9-2. It was close 4-2. Montreal goals by Napier and Caney. Marion Stastny, Real Kluche, Paymon, and Dale Hunter scored. And then in the third, Anton Stastny, Richard, Peter Stastny, Michel Goulet, and then Kluche. So all 3 Stastny scored a goal. They outscored Montreal by themselves. Boston beat Buffalo 7-3 as Vachon beats Don Edwards, Kitchener. Buffalo goes by Ramsey, Perreault, and Foligno. Jump around. Middleton, McNabb, Crowder, Middleton, Peterson, and Park goes for Boston. Rangers, Washington, and it would be Washington going to New York winning 4-1 as Dave Perreault beats Steve Weeks. Ronnie Duguay for the Rangers. Vitek, Tukey, the AHL legend, Franschetti, and Wes Jarvis for Washington. Game 1, we host Philly, and Game 1, we go with Millicent versus Pete Peters. Kind of a weird, but we have 2 good goalies. I know that. Our main guys for the division semis are Mike Bossy, who, regular 50-goal scorer. Trache, known for his point totals. Clark Gillies, known for his brashness. John Tonelli and Bob Nystrom, part of the 1980 winning goal. Bobby Bourne, Dennis Potvin, number 5 in your program. So good for the Islanders, they refused to give him up as the number 1 pick for 5 Montreal players. 2 of the 6 other brothers, Brendan Dwayne, in this series. Daryl is out of luck with St. Louis. Daryl's in the Stanley Cup playoffs as Chicago. Brian Sutter for St. Louis, but they're not going to make it. And Rich and Ron have yet to be drafted. Butch Goring, the big move by the Islanders to need a number 2 quarter center and all that. So they know what to do. Andres Color playing Butch score. Wayne Merrick, Mike McEwen, who was a good defenseman for the Rangers, then Colorado wrecked him. Now he's in the Oilers. Thomas Janssen, Billy Carroll, Stephen Pearson, Hector Marini, Dave Langevin, Ken Morrow, part of the American Ice team, Greg Gilbert, and Gord Lane. The Flyers, Bill Barber, Kitchener, Brian Propp, a great Western Hockey League icon with Brandon, Ron Flockhart, Reggie Leach still around with the Flyers, return rival, Ken Linsman, the Rat, Tim Curran over his power play abilities, Bobby Clark, the captain. Ray Allison, also from Brandon, Inca Silasalo, Daryl Sittler, leaving Toronto. So Daryl Sittler left Toronto because of the whole situation with Punch and Black and, Harold Ballard. Dane Wilson, Paul Holmgren, the first American to get a hat trick in the Stanley Cup Finals. Bob Hoffmeyer, Al Hill, who was a decent player, who had 5 points in his debut but fell off the map. Glenn Cochran, Tom Gorns, Greg Adams, future Canucks icon. Mark Botel, Jimmy Watson still around from the Big Bet, from the Broad Street Bully days. Brad Marsh, 1,000 games, helmetless. Fred Arthur, Bob Daly, Frank Boff, and Lindsey Carson. 2 minutes. Flyers take a first chance and they can't get anything. 5 minutes later. Question? But we killed the zone on them. 2 minutes later. Holiday Gold. He ain't Clark Griswold. He's Clark Gillies. He scores from Tenelli. 1 minute later. Born to be Wild. His first from Gillies and Bossy. 2-0. Then, again. First from McEwen and Ronson. 9 different players with a point, I think. 4 minutes later. Back. McEwen. Bossy and Texas. So it's up 4-0. We're fully screwed. So Pelly Lindbergh's going to come in for the final 2 periods. That's what they say. 1 minute later, they score. Flockhart, flock of seagulls, and I ran and scored the puck in the net from Holmgren. I might as well do the time for both teams. 3 minutes later, they score again. Frank Boff, take a bath. He scores from Al Hill and makes it 4-2. But, Frank Boff, a lot of you, if you're British, you think Frank Boff. Wait a minute, wasn't he the guy from Grandstand? No, that's a different guy. 3 minutes later, Trottier gets hacked by Greg Adams, and now we have a chance to score. And the power play scores. It's a time for a goal against the Flyers. Take out the net with a pair of pliers. Bossy scores from Pontin and Gillies to make it 5-2. Mike Bossy knows what he's doing. 5 minutes later, they score again. It was a prop bet. He scores from Bain and Barber, makes it 5-3. 1 minute later, he scores. Lots of shot. Pontin makes it 6-3. 1 minute later, he scored again. That's so Butch. Telling them, wait a minute. I was trained down that position for a reason. He scores from Brent Sutter and Morrow, makes it 7-3. To finish the period, they score. Reggie Leach, the Riverton rival from Clark and Prop, 7-4. So 7 goals in that crazy third period. So 7-4. Well, the dice is 4-7. Well, that's the score right now. 7-4. Wow. 3 minutes later. You have a chance, Prop? No. Trying to cut it. And so he will take a penalty. It's Sittler, of all people. Tonelli, damn. Johnson gets hit. 5 minutes later. 5 minutes later. Score! Thomas Johnson from Nellie Merrick makes it 8-4. Nice blood. I think are they going to score another goal? They do. Linsman with 3 seconds left from Barber and Sittler. We just gave up, but we win 8-5. So Lindbergh, I think, does get the loss, right? No, they give it to Peters. I thought it would be Lindbergh, but yeah, they were down 4-0. Well, it was a hard scoring affair. 13 goals, and nobody actually scored 2 goals. The 13 goals were scored by 13 different players on both teams. Philly had Flockhart, Bath, Prop, Leach, and Linsman. We had Clark, well, Gillies, Bourne, Potten, McEwen, Bossy, Trottier, Goring, and Janssen. So 13 different goal scorers. That's amazing. But we're up 1-0. So Quebec and Washington are the only 2 road teams that won. Game 2, Toronto wins in overtime thanks to a goal by Rocky Top Saginaw at 11:35 from Jim Benning. Vincent Tremblay was in that against Beaupre, and Toronto wins 5-4. Chicago beats Winnipeg to split their series. Banner beats Stanikowski. Winnipeg go by Lindstrom, but Secord, Sharpley, Danny Savard, and Laziak scoring. Edmonton wins 5-3. They're 1 win away. Ron Lowe in that against Lazard. I mean, Ron Lowe of all people. LA goes by Larry Murphy, Charlie Simmer, and Marcel Daniel. Edmonton goes by Paul Coffey Kitchener. Yes, he was a Kitchener guy. Mark Messier, Dave Lumley, Gretzky, and Messier. Mm-hmm. Vancouver wins. They're 1 win away, 4-3. Lemon losing King Richard. Calgary goes by Lavalley, and Bridgman. Vancouver goes by Gradine, Lindgren, Tiger, and Baudrillard. Rangers win 6-4 to tie up their series with Washington. Paro losing to Mio. Washington goes by Gold, Gardner, Ryan Welter, and Gardner again. Ranger goes by Pavlich, Vitorik, Johnstone, Young Hands, really. Duguay and Ruotsalainen. Boston is now up 2-0. They win 3-2 as Don Edwards losing to Vachon again. Buffalo goes by Andre Savard and Dale McCourt. Boston goes by Ray Bork, Barry Pedersen, and Steve Casper. And Montreal wins 5-1. So the teams that are up 2-0 are the teams that are favored to win. Montreal wins 5-1. Bouchard losing to Danny Heron. Finally put Heron in. Quebec go by Paymont, but then Wickenheiser, Acton, Mondu, Acton, and Chris Nyland even with the goals. So now, question is, can we go 2-0 up on Philly? Mulinson in the net against Pete Peters. So Peters is back in the net. Why not? 3 minutes later. On the Flyers, it's Cochran. Can we take advantage? No, they killed the son on Bossy and Johnson. It's nonsense. Speaking of the devil. They score on the power play. Sinisalo from Adams and Flockhart makes it 1-0. So the 14th different goal scorer. 14 goals, 14 goals. 4 minutes later, they score. Hoffmeyer from Flockhart makes it 2-0. And that's the 15th different goal scorer in this series. 15 goals, 15. 5 minutes later, there's the first multi-goal scorer. Holiday Road. His second, Clark Gillies, not Clark Griswold, from Bossy and Trotz. To end the period, we tie. Clark does it again. His second of the night from Merritt, 2-2. But Pete Peters will get out of the first period. Why not? 2 minutes later. A question? Bob Bourne. Bill Barber? No. 4 minutes later. They scored! Danny! Second from Bossy's passing the puck now. It's going to be a teammate. 3-2. 2 minutes later, they score the tie. Daryl Sittler, my boy, from Kerr and Barber. 3-3. 5 minutes later. We score! It's a time for goals and a time to think. 7 goals through the sink. The second from Langeman. 4 minutes later. Before 5-3. That's all throw. Born is second. We're born to be wild. His second from Tonelli and Bossy, 5-3. And Limburg did decently, so they're going to let him play the third period. And Philly will get a penalty. Hoffman? What? Oh, Bossy. Bossy. Much later. Tonelli from Confidence. Much later. 63, Taylor takes a penalty. Clark misses. Dwayne Sutter will be okay. And they killed the 7. We'll be okay. Billy Prop, no. And we win 6-3, a slow third period. Lindbergh did decently, but yeah, we win 6-3. We did it again. We're halfway home. Sinisalo, Hoffmeyer, and Sittler scoring for Philly. I think that's 8 different Flyers goals, 8 different goal scorers. Our goals: Gillies, Potten, Bossy, Bourne, and Tanale. All right, the Edmonton. Do they sweep LA? They do, 6-4. Lowe beats Keene. Man, Ron Lowe. I think they figured they didn't really need the Grant Fuhrer, the 18-year-old. Edmonton was up 6-0. Lowe, Marty Hagman, Rolston. Owens. Yeah. Rolston, Messier, Curry, and Huddy. LA Eagles, Dion, and Jimmy Fox. Vancouver, did they sweep? Nope. Calgary wins 4-3. Regan beats King Richard. Vancouver goes by Nil, Smil, and Gradine. Calgary goes by Lavallee, Bridgman, Houston, and Palat. So they're still going on. Boston up 2-0, and not so fast. Buffalo wins 4-1. Jacques Cloutier in the net against Vachon. Boston goal by Norman Levely, who unfortunately would end up having that stroke. Rod Sealing with a pair of goals. Rick Sealing with a pair of goals. Savard with a pair of goals for Buffalo, too. So, yeah. Do that. Sorry, I'm a little distracted. Minnesota wins in overtime in Toronto. Gilles Meloche beat Tremblay. Overtime goal by Christoph from the American Ice team from Al McAdam. Chicago crushes Winnipeg 8-4. Espo beats Siltart. Winnipeg goes by Howard McLean, Christian, and Paul McLean. Chicago goes by Mulvey, Bully, Secord, Wilson, Mulvey, Secord, Sharpley. Rangers win in overtime in Washington. Weeks beats Paro in the first minute. Fitorik from Allison and Maloney scoring his third of the postseason. So Robbie Fitorik is the hero. It could be Rangers, it could be us. And Montreal goes to Quebec, win 5-1. Heron beats Johnny Garrett. Only Quebec goal by Marin Stastny. And with 12 seconds left, broke Heron's shutout streak. Lafleur, Jarvis, Napier, Tremblay, Spicht, and Mandu with the goals for Montreal. So Chicago, I believe, is the only. Yeah, Chicago's the only one of the 8 in the 8 matchups that are like the unfavored. So Winnipeg's the 2 seed. Chicago's number 3. Can we sweep Philly? They're going with Rick St. Croix. We're going with the hot hand, Mielenson. Might as well. 4 minutes into the game. Hit. No danger. 4 more minutes. No. 2 minutes. Aggression? Only on the Flyers with Team Kerr. Can we take advantage of Clark-Gillies? Damn it. We score! Power play goal. And Hot to Trot, his second from Denny. Should be Denny the Menace. Much later. Philly? Oh, I thought Linsman had it. That's what I thought. And there's one Philly nil through those times. He scored 17, East Tennessee State. 1 minute later, they score. 4 minutes later, we score. It's a time for goals, and it's 2-0. That is what Philly has to pay on their bill. His third of the series from Bourne and Pearson makes it 2-0. 3 minutes later, we score. Tortolino Tonelli, his second from Carroll and Pepe Pearson, 3-0. 4 minutes later, Pearson. Pearson in the back. It's Linsman. Can we take advantage? Not Bourne. But we score. Calor from Johnston and Tonelli makes it 4-0. We're looking good. To end the period, top scores from Bottle and Warren. 4-1. And they're going to give Kelly another chance for the third period. 5 minutes later. But we score. Born to be wild. His third from Tonelli and Giles. 5-1. So I think no problems there. And we score again. Calor from Dwayne Sutter. So his second of the night. Wrong color. 5 minutes later, double hit. Then 2 minutes. We score. Linsman makes it 6-2. Well, this game's pretty much over. And we win 6-2. Convincing fashion. We sweep the Flyers and beat them up. Prop and Linsman scoring 2 goals. Well, Trottier, Bossy, Tonelli, Calor, Bourne, and Calor. We win 6-2. So we score a combined 20 goals and give up 10. So that's not bad. We beat them by a 2-1 margin. Yeah, only LA and Philly or LA. Yeah, this was just their regular season. Lazard, Keens, Rutherford, and Mike Blake. Yeah, Lazard was 8 games below 500. And they got swept. Playoff stats. Lazard was 0-2, Keens 0-1, Dave Taylor and Charlie Simmer. For Philly, Lindbergh had the best goals against, 5.19, and he didn't start anything against. Peters 0-2 with a 9 goals against. St. Croix 6. Brian Propp did score 4 points. Bill Barber scored 3. That's pretty good. Cats are meowing in the background. So let's see. Let's finish it off. Game 4, Minnesota beats Toronto 5-4. Bullpen beats Toronto, and the Leafs are OUT. Toronto goes by Fraser, Martin, Solomon, and Melrose. Yeah, Barry Melrose. Minnesota goes by McCarthy, Cicerelli, Hawkinson, Solheim, and then Mark Johnson, Miracle Knights. So Minnesota will win Chicago. And Winnipeg have to play game 5, 7-5. Stankowski beats Espo. So Winnipeg could do it. It would be nice to see them win. Chicago goes by Lysiak, Sharpley, Mulvey, Roskowski, and Secord. Winnipeg goes by Christian, Lukowitz, Debois, McLean, Howardchuk, Lindholm, and Howardchuk again. So we got a game 5 in Winnipeg. We have a game 5 in Vancouver. Calgary wins 5-2 to force a game 5. Reagan beats King Richard. Vancouver goes by Gradine and Smeal. Calgary goes by Reinhardt, Chouinard, Peplinski, LaValle, and Reinhardt. Oh yeah, Kitchener. Rangers beat the Caps 4-3. Weeks beats Paro. They were up 4-0. Dugay, Hospodar, McClanahan from the beautiful American Ice Team and Maloney. Kitchener. Washington goes by Robertson, Gardner, and Walter. So Washington's out. So we get the Rangers. Buffalo wins to force a game 5 back in Boston 4-2. Marco Barron losing to Kitcheners. Don Edwards. Boston goes by Stan Donovan and Peter McNabb. Buffalo goes by JF Sauve with 2, Gilles Perreault, and even Yvan Lambert. That guy. And Quebec wins in overtime against Montreal to force game 5. Nice drill by Bouchard with the win over Rick Wamsley. I don't know why Montreal did that. Montreal was down 3-0. Stastny, Tardif, and Goulet scoring for Quebec. Well, Anton Stastny. Montreal goes by Lefleur, Langway, and Chris Nyland. In overtime at 3:32. Real on the power play from Stastny and Marois. Lots of game 5s. Chicago on the road 4-2. Espo beats Stankowski. Paul McLean 7 goals in 7 games, but they lose. Chicago goes by Marsh, Gretschker, Preston, and Tom Higgins. So the Hawks take down Winnipeg. They will take on Minnesota. Vancouver wins in overtime over Calgary and prevents the choke job. Lemelin losing to Brodeur. It was close. Vancouver had scored in the last minute. Boldrieff from McCarthy and Helinka. And then at 5:17, Gradine hit 6 from Stan Smeel. And the Canucks will now have to take on Edmonton. Game 5. Montreal wins in overtime. Garrett losing to Rick Wamsley. Quebec was down 4-2. Cote on the power play with gaining the box from Goulet and Stastny, Peter Stastny, and then Basil McRae. Remember him? From Paul Stastny. And then at 4:29 of overtime, Mark Napier, his 5th from Larry Robinson. And unlike 1982, for real, Quebec did not win in overtime. It was Montreal. And they will play the Bruins 6-5. Fashon beats Don Edwards. It was close. Buffalo goes by Foligno, Playfair, Foligno with the hat trick, and Lindy Ruff. Remember him? Boston goes by McNabb, Cashman, Crowder, Peterson, Milbury, and Norman Levley, the hero. Yeah, Boston Buffalo did have that game 7, but that was 1983. Honors Rangers. So the division finals will have only one team that was not a top 2 seed. That was Chicago. Chicago had the only upset, if you will. They're ranked number 12 by points. Now they got to play Minnesota. Edmonton, Vancouver. Minnesota, Chicago, great rivalry. In the 90s, they had a few good matchups in real life. Edmonton, Vancouver, we have the Battle of Canada and what should have been the division finals if it wasn't for LA's upset. Islanders, Rangers, it's always New York versus New York, and Montreal, Boston. That's a great rivalry. So it's basically rivalry. All 4 series are rivalries. So, you'll never what you get. Anyway, I'm Jeff Diamond. Adieu.